Are you a realtor? If you are, then you know how challenging it can be to put together a benefit package for both yourself, your family, and maybe an employer or two that you have working for you.
We're Shannon and Michael. We're with Healthcare Genius, and we are here today to talk to you realtors about what these challenges are and some ways that you can tackle them. So we've got a few tips for you, and the first one that we want to jump into is surrounding healthcare. We all know that healthcare is really expensive, but particularly for those of us who don't have an employer who can help offset those costs for us. So you may think that your options are really limited when you're looking for the right health insurance, and unfortunately you may be right, but one thing to consider when you are looking at health insurance plans is to think about healthcare in retirement and what you can be doing today to save for that time when it comes. If you're not familiar with a high deductible health plan, it's definitely something to look into, and the number one reason for that is because it allows you to contribute to a health savings account or an HSA. These dollars can be used tax-free for healthcare costs, and we always recommend that our clients, if they have the ability, contribute to an HSA, save for as long as you can, and it'll offset some of the lofty healthcare costs that you'll find you'll have in retirement.
Two other things, Shannon, we've seen now. We happen to be in Colorado. We don't have as many options here, but there are religious sharing programs that we're seeing people take advantage of. We do caution you to be aware of what those coverages will actually look like. So they're not for everybody. The other one is short-term medical. Again, here in Colorado, we don't offer that, but there are other states where you can actually buy a short-term medical policy that can be a lot less expensive than traditional plans. Now, one thing to be thinking about, again, using Colorado, we only have HMOs coverage in this state. That's all we have for individual coverage. So if something happened to you that you needed to go out of network to an MD Anderson, we talk about this a lot, or to some other specialty facility, you may be paying for that out of pocket. So that kind of takes us into the next benefit, which would be life insurance.
Right. So as we all know, it's necessary for most of us to have a life insurance policy, but our tip today is to not only think about the death benefit when you're looking at a life insurance policy, but also think about living benefits that are connected to that policy. So what does that mean, Michael, and when should you be thinking about it?
These are fairly new policies. They've been around 5 to 10 years, depending on the insurance company. But they allow you, if you had a serious illness, a cancer, stroke, heart attack, to be able to draw from the death benefit without having to pass away.
Yep.
So it can be very powerful. We've seen a number of situations, both Shannon and I, in our own personal lives, with people who were able to access those benefits to help pay for out-of-pocket healthcare costs that they were using for whether it be experimental treatment or traveling to an MD Anderson, as we mentioned.
So if you haven't in the last couple of years, please make sure you're reviewing your life insurance policy. We're happy to do a complimentary review if it's something that you're interested in. And if you don't have living benefits, make sure you consider adding them to your policy or looking at a policy that does have that option. So the third point that we want to talk about is disability. How should you be thinking about it if you're self-employed, and what should you do? Michael?
As a realtor, obviously, you can only make a living if you're able to show houses, if you're out there, with clients. So if you can't do that, you can't do your job, then it's tough to make an income. So disability insurance is really important. Again, a lot of realtors are 1099, so they're not part of an overall group policy when it comes to disability. Want to make sure that you have a policy. The advantage for it will be that in most cases it's going to be tax-free to you. We always encourage people to look at what their overhead is, and if you can at least purchase a policy that covers the things like your mortgage, your living expenses, so that you have some protection if something happened that you couldn't work.
Absolutely. The next piece that we want to cover is something that we mentioned earlier in the video, and that's retirement health care. When you think of that, you may think of Medicare, and unfortunately, if you're not employed by a large company, you will have to sign up for Medicare when you're 65. You don't have an option. And so we just want to make sure you're thinking about that and that you're prepared to do so when you do turn 65. We know a lot of realtors that continue to work way past 65.
A lot of realtors we know are affected by what we call the punch in the gut tax. You'll see other videos we've made about this, but what that is Medicare means testing. So because if you're a small employer or you're by yourself as a 1099 employee, when you sign up for Medicare, if you're making a good income, you're still going to have to pay higher Medicare costs. So understand that's why the HSA is a great vehicle to be putting money away to offset what those higher costs are. There's also some things you can do around your retirement planning. As a realtor, you may be able to start a defined benefit plan or a cash balance plan. Those plans can incorporate a 401h account into it, which we call a super HSA, where you can contribute money that when you retire, or even if you're still working, you can take money out of that to pay for your healthcare costs.
If you're curious about what your costs will look like in retirement, we have actually put together a complimentary report where you can fill in some information about yourself and see what those costs will be in relation to whatever Social Security income you might have coming. So feel free to check that out. It's in the link in our description below. And the last thing that we want to talk to you about is really the big hole that we see in both health insurance while you're working and in Medicare, and that's something that we call long-term care. Michael, do you want to touch on long-term care and the importance of long-term care insurance?
Yeah, we mentioned disability, and when we think of long-term care insurance, disability insurance is when you're working, and long-term care insurance really is when you're no longer working. And it's designed to not have to use your assets to pay for something if you had to go into a nursing home, or even if you just have to have people come into your home to take care of you. We know a lot of realtors, their investment portfolios have a lot of real estate. And while you might be able to get a loan on that real estate, oftentimes that's not really what you want to do, and having to sell a property at the wrong time can be really expensive. So having a long-term care policy that can help offset what your costs would be should you need that, when, by the way, we always say about 2/3 of people are going to need some sort of care. It's important to look at that and incorporate that into your planning.
Absolutely. It can be upwards of $100,000 a year just to be in a nursing home. So definitely something to consider.
As a bonus to that too, Shannon, with that HSA money or those 401h dollars, you can actually use those to pay for your long-term care premiums on your policy. So
tax-free.
Yes.
So we hope this video was helpful for you. If you have any questions, please feel free to let us know in the comments below. We also have a marketplace where you can go and look at your options for a lot of things that we talked about today. That's also in our description below. Feel free to check it out. And if you want to become a client of ours and get one of those complimentary reviews that we talked about, we'd be happy to help you out with that. Make sure you subscribe to our channel, like our videos, and click the notification bell so you know when we come out with new content.